Diamond Select plays the game of death. Here's your look at the new Bruce Lee Deluxe Collector's action figure. Bruce Jung-Fan Lee, or Lee Yu-song, was born in 1940 in San Francisco, California, while his parents were on tour with the Chinese opera. Ultimately raised in Hong Kong, Bruce Lee was a child actor, appearing in more than 20 films. At the age of 13, Bruce took up the study of Wing Chun Kung Fu under renowned Wing Chun master Yip Man. Bruce left Hong Kong at the age of 18, came to the United States, and made his way to Seattle, where he worked in a restaurant of a family friend. He soon enrolled in University of Washington, where he pursued a degree in philosophy. Bruce began to teach Kung Fu in Seattle and soon opened the first school, the Jung-Fan Kung Fu Institute. Two more schools followed in Oakland and Los Angeles. Concurrently, Bruce married his wife Linda and had two children, Brandon and Shannon. In the mid-1960s, Bruce was discovered while doing an exhibition in Long Beach Internationals, and TV roles soon followed. This 7-inch scale select action figure features interchangeable parts and accessories. It was designed by Yuri Ming and sculpted by Gentle Giant Studios. Well, before we do anything, we're going to figure out how tall Bruce Lee stands. So, taking the tape measure right to the very top of his head, there's a couple of different ways that you, of course, could look at this. His leg spread is a little bit wider, so, of course, it shortens the figure slightly. This gives me a figure dimension height-wise of being 7 inches in height. Of course, when you are displaying the figure, you're probably not going to be displaying him standing straight up like that. But just in case you want to know how that differs, some people have asked in the past, does the way you stand the figure determine its height? Absolutely it does. So if you have it completely standing straight, you're looking at a figure standing 7.3. Again, you probably may not likely have him standing as straight as that, but just to show you that the height does vary depending on how wide you've got the leg stance. Switching that over to centimeters, however, you're looking at the figure standing 18.6, a little over 18.5 centimeters tall. Let's have a look at the accessories that come included with this martial arts legend. He comes with a series of swappable different versions of the Nunchaku or Nunchuck. He comes with just the default look where it doesn't have any bells and whistles to it. It's been done in the bright yellow and the black striping to match the costume that he's wearing as well. The middle section of the nunchuck is actually not roping, instead it's just made of plastic. You could bend this and manipulate this. In fact, you could probably even heat this if you want to have it more of in a permanent position. It does fit into his hand, though the gripping hands that they give you for the figure, the nunchaku, sits a little on the loose side. So you may also want to find yourself heating the hands up slightly just so you can reduce the whole size of their gripping hands. But he does come with this as his sort of defaulted nunchaku, and then he does have a variation to that, which is basically the same nunchuck, but it does have the swooshing action that's been added to the back of it. This has simply just been added additional plastic that they've molded to the actual handle portion of the nunchuck, giving you, again, like a swooshing action. I'm swooshing my hand behind it so that you guys can see it's made up of translucent plastic. It also looks like they've added a little bit of almost of a smoky coloring to it, just kind of looking like it's cutting through the air as it's swiping its way across. If you want to go even grander to that, Bruce Lee also comes included with this. Get a load of this. This is pretty cool. Looking at this reminded me of the Marvel Select 4, also released from Diamond Select, that had the Mjolnir that actually had the same kind of spinning action. This is really neat because it does look like he's actually spinning the nunchuck. You can imagine how many spins, how fast the spins are, that you can see that many of the nunchaku spinning around. And again, it's got that kind of translucent plastic in between each one. If you look at it, though, each of them have been sculpted above, they're raised, so it's not simply just a flat disc surface. It does really look neat, though. There's the handle portion of it. It's not removable or anything like that. I'm not really sure why you would want to remove it anyways, but he does have that as an available option also. I'm trying to remember whether he has one or two of these in the film, of course, that this costume is based from, Game of Death. But certainly one way to display the figure. Really, how cool is that, to have it look as if he's actually spinning the nunchuck? We'll move those accessories out of the way. So again, I really like those. I like that they include those. Bruce Lee also comes with a series of interchangeable hands. I just want to say, though, that when you get it out of the packaging, he does come with a pair of closed fists. Those are already attached to the forearms of the figure. I swapped them out at the beginning of this review simply just so he could actually hold the nunchuck in place. So he comes with a pair of closed fists. Not overly exciting, but again, if you want to figure that in for Bruce Lee, of course he's a martial arts expert, why not actually have him with some closed fists? If you want to get a little bit more creative, though, like I said, he does have the gripping hands, which I've already got into the sockets. And then he's got various different Bruce Lee kind of gestured hands. Ones that vary in sculpt and shape to one another. In fact, actually, I think in some of the promotional work for Game of Death, the way he's kind of holding the nunchaku, he's actually got his fingers up in some of those shots. So it's one way, certainly a strong contender for how you want to display the figure. But again, like the gripping hands or any of the hands, don't really hold the nunchuck in place as much as I'd like. To swap out any one of the hands is simply just a case of just wiggling the hand out of the socket, replacing it to the hand that you want to use. And again, if you want to then give Bruce Lee the various different gestures that he has in the film, and all through the various different Bruce Lee films that have existed, you can pretty much pull off a lot of that with the hands that they give you for the figure. Let's put the figure down here for a second. Yes, of course, he does also have that lone, wandering, interchangeable head that sort of seems severed and part of the backdrop in the background. Of course, we'll have a look at that in a second as well. But let's have a look at the actual figure. Clad in yellow costuming, this is, of course, his jumpsuit that he would wear in the 1979 film Game of Death. In fact, such an iconic costume, people are perplexed by the idea that Bruce Lee would want to wear such a bright yellow costume. But it was such a iconic real costume that even Quentin Tarantino found the way to incorporate that into his Kill Bill films, which they actually have. I think it was actually Mamba's kid that was wearing the yellow costume, and of course the bride also wear a version of the yellow costume as well. So it's a very iconic looking costume. And again, I think a good contender for how you want to display a Bruce Lee figure is such bright yellow colors as this. It's very bright, like to the color of a lemon yellow. Yellow has actually been done quite well also here as well. It seems like the legs are probably done in yellow plastic, where it seems almost like the upper torso might have been painted. The yellowing is a little bit different from one another. This part here from the torso is a little bit of a different yellow than this part moving further down. And I'm not sure why they ended up painting the top section here, where painting it, obviously just having in the yellow plastic. Maybe they wanted to keep the coloring. Maybe it was a darker plastic that they used for the face, and they just simply painted the yellow over top of it. But the yellow is slightly a different color than the yellow that's basically from the torso down. For his head sculpt, it's not a bad looking Bruce Lee. It seems slightly off, but overall I'm pretty happy with how the likeness turned out. As I said, there is this wandering head. It's not wandering too much though. It does also have the angry expressioned face also. Game of Death is one of my Bruce Lee favorite films. My favorite of all time, and I think can be chalked more up to nostalgia, is probably more so Enter the Dragon. There's something about Enter the Dragon. I remember that being on City TV here in Canada. It seemed Enter the Dragon was on almost every weekend or every other weekend late at night. And I can't imagine the number of times I watched Enter the Dragon. Just a fantastic film. But Game of Death certainly is a fun film as well, especially if you're a fan of Bruce Lee. It does definitely show off some of his real skill sets as a martial arts legend. But again, those are the two head portraits that you can go with for Bruce Lee. Kind of like this head sculpt, actually, just because it does have the open mouth, much more angry expression. Here you really can see how Diamond Select showcases their sculpting skills by putting in the teeth and even like the almost floating tongue on the inside, moving around, flapping around, I'm sure, as he's yelling and dispensing some justice. We're going to go ahead and pop the head off quite easily, actually, from the larger ball joint. And then we could just replace the head to the one that we want to go with. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Now, as far as I know, this is also the first Bruce Lee figure that we've gotten from Diamond Select. Based on how well they've actually managed a Game of Death version of Bruce Lee, I would certainly love to see them do other ones as well. Maybe we'll also get some side characters. Love to also see some of the characters from the Enter the Dragon film, which, like I said, is one of my all-time favorite Bruce Lee films. Overall, like looking at the figure, very happy with how this one turned out. If anything, like I said, the only small I could point out is the fact that the yellow doesn't seem quite the same coloring as it does at the top, as it does down below, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close. Let's have a look at this guy's articulation. His head rotates all the way around. It hinges up and down, and you can also get rocking back and forth. The arms hinge outward. Looking at the arms, it almost looks like the way that they've sleeved this section here, that he should have some additional articulation. I'm wondering if they actually have done that, more so just to hide that the hinge is actually in there. But you do notice that there's this extra piece of plastic that's happening right there. I guess they maybe did it so it's a little bit more of a seamless transition from the torso to the shoulders. Speaking of shoulders, or right below the shoulders, Bruce Lee also has a swivel in the bicep. He has a double hinge on the elbow, so uppercut, elbow chop to somebody's face nearby. He does also have the swivel in the hands, and it moves back and forth as well. The hands do, that is. Upper torso ball joint. He does also have a waist swivel, a little on the tight side on this particular figure. And then he also has ball joints. So the legs can split out a fair bit, actually. If you got yourself a display stand, thank goodness they do put peg holes on the undersides of his feet, then yes, you could have Bruce Lee doing some dispensing via a roundhouse kick. Why not? You could also put that in there as well. He has a swivel on the top cut or 3/4 cut of the thigh. He has a double hinge happening on the knee, quite a bit actually as well, which again lends itself to, you know, if you wanted to put him some pretty cool looking poses, you could probably pull that off with, like I said, the addition of a display stand, which sadly this figure does not come included with. And then lastly, rounding up the rest of his articulation, I also want to mention too that the legs do a drop down. I haven't seen this happening too often on Diamond Select figures, and I probably think the imagining reasoning for that is so that you could get the higher kicks for Bruce Lee. Assuring you, though, it's not broken. Again, you're just going to bring those ball sockets down, and then you just pop them back into place like that. Lastly, his legs have, or feet have, hinges back and forth, and you can rock them back and forth as well. Quite a generous amount, I must admit. The hardest part for a figure like this, for as active and agile as Bruce Lee was, the hardest part is just trying to pinpoint how you would want to display a figure like this. I really like the way that they included those nunchaku in various different forms. Might end up displaying the figure like that. Or I could display the figure kind of in a roundhouse kick. At least again, because he does have peg holes on the undersides of his feet, though he doesn't come with a display stand. Making use of a display stand, you could certainly pull off looks like that. Now, when I think Bruce Lee, I generally think of Enter the Dragon. Chalk it up more to nostalgia than anything else. Game of Death and Enter the Dragon are still my favorite of the Bruce Lee films, and I think a lot of people remember Game of Death. Not necessarily for the story, might have had something to do with the fight that he has with the towering Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, which is funny enough that in that fight scene, he's pretty much wearing his glasses the whole time. That's pretty BA, if you know what I mean. But I think a lot of people remember Game of Death so strongly because of the yellow, lemon-colored costume that Bruce Lee wears in that film. That jumpsuit has become almost as iconic as the martial arts legend himself, and directors like Quentin Tarantino would nod to this yellow jumpsuit, even in films themselves like Kill Bill. There's something, like I said, so iconic about this particular costume, and I think a perfect fit for one of the first entries for the Bruce Lee action figure line from Diamond Select. I'm glad they went this route. Yes, there could have also been various different Bruce Lee costumes and through various different films that he's been in, but if you're going to go Bruce Lee, I think no more iconic than the outfit that he wears in Game of Death. This figure actually is quite nice. The head portrait is close enough to Bruce Lee. It's not just perfectly on, but it's close. And I like that they did give us two different head portraits that you could display with the figure. Speaking of displaying, how cool are these nunchaku? 3 different variations of the nunchuck that you can have displayed with the figure. And again, through the various different hand poses and gestures that he also has, there's a lot that you can do when displaying this figure. I certainly hope, though, that we're going to be getting ourselves some future Bruce Lee characters for all the films that, of course, he's appeared in, and maybe even some of the sub-characters as well that appeared in these films. I would love to see Diamond Select approach those as well. These, some good news, though, if you guys are interested in picking up the new Diamond Select Bruce Lee Deluxe Collector's Action Figure of Bruce Lee from Game of Death. Some good news is you should be able to find it right now at your local comic book stores and some retail stores. If you manage to pick up this one for yourself, let me know in the comments section what you guys think of the figure or based on this review and this review alone. Make sure as well you hit that subscribe button down below, swing next door, and maybe start a fight with some towering basketball player and turn on that bell notification so that when future videos are coming onto this channel, you'll never miss out. And stay tuned, because we're going to have a whole look at a whole bunch of upcoming and new released Diamond Select statues, figures, and collectibles. So if that is your fancy, stay tuned, because there's going to be a whole lot coming your way. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.